The Marvelous Mrs Maisel. Wow, that's quite a tongue twister. Say that 3 times fast. The Marvelous Mrs Maisel. The Marvelous Mrs Maisel. The Marvelous Mrs Maisel. I am Ruben and this is my review for The Marvelous Mrs Maisel Season 2. The Marvelous Mrs Maisel was not a series that was on my list to watch. In fact, when I saw it on Amazon, I kind of just let it slide by because quite honestly, I didn't think like it looked like a show that I wanted to see. So when Amazon sent me an email saying, would you like to review Season 2? I was like, no thanks. Until I watched the trailer, and then I saw that it had won 8 Emmys, and then I saw that it had a number of actors that I really like to follow, and then I made the mistake of watching episode 1, and that was me hooked for the entirety of season 1, and I watched it entirely in a couple of days.
Yes. Crap!
So The Marvelous Mrs Maisel is set in 1950s Manhattan. It's a 16-minute drama series that follows the life of Midge Maisel. Season 1 sees this most excellent, exuberant lady go from being the best mother, wife, all-round amazing person to having her marriage and life fall apart. It's here she discovers the talent for talking, for speaking on stage, and not only that, people are laughing at her when she does it, and so she decides to try and become a comedian.
Thank you and good night!
Well, as you can imagine, this is not what a lady should do in the 1950s. The series hits on everything that was acceptable in the 1950s and has an outlet to speak about those things through the comedy of Mrs. Maisel's stand-up, which is often very funny because she talks about some very hard-hitting experiences of her own life and all the injustices she goes through and brings that onto the stage. So season 2 sees the cast return to a world where Midge is trying to make a living from this comedy thing, and she's finding out that it's not so easy to do, especially as the comedy club has always been a comedy club for the boys, and women who generally got up on stage in those days were generally taking off their clothes.
Too excited, fellas. She keeps her clothes on.
This series, for me, season 2 especially, was riveting. When Midge gets up and delivers a piece of comedy, you can't help but root for her because you know how much it has taken for her to get to that point. I think this is why the series has won so many awards. The comedy sets are like the end of a journey, a grand adventure that has taken a mammoth amount of work and hardship to get there. Along Midge's journey, we see how her family is affected by the marriage breakup and her so-called erratic behavior. We see how her ex is affected, how her kids are affected. We get to go along this life journey and see how Midge, wanting to make this drastic change in her career, affects those around her. I think it's a very clever way to tell the story.
I don't know, I make a hell of a jello mold.
The writers of the show were not scared of showing just how that was not the done sort of thing for a lady from a proper family.
No!
The scripting and dialogue is excellent in season 2, but I think it's the execution of the characters and their relationships to the others that make this series mesmerizing. Rose and Tony Wiseman, played by Marion Hinkle and Tony Sherlock, are phenomenal on screen as Midge's parents. In fact, in season 2 we get to see so much more of what makes them tick, who they are as characters, and this really helps to kind of further cement the Maisel character.
And they're paying you?
Yes.
In money?
Yes.
You'll need a bank account.
I have a bank account.
Okay.
However, without a doubt, my favorite scenes are when Midge and Susie Mayerson are doing their dialogue together. Their chemistry and acting ability makes it feels like you're watching a conversation, like you're a fly on the wall.
Alone, I am a spittoon. With you, I'm a somebody.
It wouldn't feel scripted if it wasn't so damn funny and clever. Alex Borsting's character Susie has a way of grounding Midge's character that makes every scene they do together tantalizing. And the dry comedic timing of Susie's often outshines that of Midge's in some places.
Fuck off.
For me, the core relationship of these two is what drives season 2. Everything else is padding and filler. Don't get me wrong, it's padding and filler that is needed. You need to see the other characters and reactions and stories to care about the comedian and the manager duo. And I think you do. The scripting and filming and score and color palette, everything is geared toward the central premise of The Marvelous Mrs Maisel's dramatic comedic adventures. And I think all those characters around, when you follow those stories and you go on adventures and you find out more about those characters, but it all centralizes on Marvelous Mrs Maisel. And I think this works really well, especially in season 2.
Tits up.
Tits up.
Honestly loved every second of this series, and I was seriously surprised at how much I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it, especially if you let it pass by. Maybe you looked at the thumbnail on Amazon Prime and thought to yourself, that's not for me. But give the first episode or the first few episodes a go and see what you think. I think you'll be hooked before you know it. The only negative I have about the show is that at times I think they take too long to get to their points, to get their points across. The episodes are 60 minutes long, and I think that if you can't tell a part of the story in 60 minutes, then maybe you've dragged it on too long. I think the overall arc is done really well, but there are times I felt it dragged a little bit. But that's just my personal opinion.
We're gonna die in this tunnel.
Good.
The Marvelous Mrs Maisel is out on the 5th of December on Amazon Prime Video, and I'm going to give The Marvelous Mrs Maisel an A. Thanks so much for watching this review. Let me know what you think of the first season. Are you looking forward to the second season? If you like this sort of review, if you like my channel, please subscribe and hit that bell. We've got some really cool reviews coming out soon, like Bird Box with Sandra Bullock and Mowgli. Those are 2 reviews we've got coming. They are exclusives to Netflix, so look out for those in the next couple of weeks. And as always, live long and Tuesday.